Today I'm talking to Mr. Scott Stornetta. He is a legend in the industry. He has been in the Bitcoin Whitepaper, is it 4 times? He is a legend. We're going to talk about his success, what Bitcoin is, Bitcoin success. First of all, Scott, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. From where to begin, how did you get started? How did you end up being in the Whitepaper?
Well, I became very interested when I started work at Bell Communications Research, part of the local labs. Became very interested in the problem of how do you create an immutable digital record.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about money at the time, but I was very concerned about the fact that all of the world's records were going digital, and there wouldn't be any way to know whether an old record was authentic.
Right.
And so there needed to be some way of having the community at large to be able to validate records. And so that was really my focus. And so that's really close to what people now think of as blockchain. We obviously didn't use that word at the time, but the technical solution was to chain together a series of blocks and then distribute those records widely. And so what really happened with Satoshi, whose work I certainly have admiration for, is that he built on top of that foundation something specifically to do with money.
Right.
And he created a very strong incentive system for people to hold the records. And that was really the mining approach. So think of what I did as a foundational layer for what Satoshi then built something quite clever on top of it.
Now, I gotta ask you this. I'm gonna take it into another direction. If I want to know a little bit about you, Scott. So if I met you in high school, what would you have been like? What would people be saying?
You would have found me in the marching band.
Yeah?
And you would have found me in the
the marching band, okay.
And in the jazz band.
Right.
And in the orchestra, I was a trumpet player.
Oh wow, okay.
And
So music.
that was a lot of fun. I also have to admit that I'm a very book reading kind of guy.
Right.
I certainly enjoy just growing up and reading a good book, a good science fiction or historical book. But I suppose that's about as dull as you get. You also would have found me riding a unicycle.
Okay.
I used to play unicycle basketball, unicycle soccer. Unicycle soccer is not that easy.
It doesn't sound easy.
Because you have to be able to kick the ball with your foot while still balancing on a unicycle.
Wow. Hey, Paul here. Let me jump in real quick. If you're getting value so far from watching this video, then please consider subscribing down below and hitting that bell notification button. It will help me and you get to watch more videos like this one. Thank you, and let's jump back into the video. So do you think that unicycling and also reading is contributed to your success as a person, as an individual?
So I'm glad that you talk about what contributes to success. One thing, as I have gotten older, I've come to appreciate is all of the relative strengths of different people. And we all aren't good at the same things, but when we learn to work well together, then we can make something very good.
Right.
And for me, the real strength goes back to an old story that's told about Isaac Newton. Mm-hmm. Now, I just want to be clear. No one is suggesting that I'm like an Isaac Newton.
Okay.
But I grew up as a physicist, or I was trained as a physicist, and so each profession has their own heroes. And the thing that I can relate to, and again, I'm not talking about trying to compare myself in scale, but I am trying to talk about comparing myself in style or quality. And that is one of many things that Newton was famous for was the law of universal gravitation. And someone asked him how he figured it out. And his answer, I thought, was very revealing. He said, I thought about it all the time.
Wow.
And I can honestly say that that's been a key to success for myself. Namely, when I started being concerned about the problem of creating immutable records, I thought about it all the time. And I just, month after month after month, I was thinking about the issue and worrying about it. And in fact, it turns out that kind of the breakthrough moment came while my wife and I were waiting in line in a restaurant to get a table.
Yeah.
And we'd just gone down at the research lab. We'd spent a lot of time on this problem and finally concluded that the problem, maybe it couldn't be solved. And so we decided, well, let's write a proof for why it can't be solved. And it was actually in the process of writing that proof that we realized that you could kind of turn the problem on its head and solve it. But that notion about thinking about something all the time, again, doesn't mean that you don't do anything else, but it's always in the back of your mind. And if I were to offer anyone advice, it would be that you've got to find something that you enjoy enough that you're willing to think about it all the time. There's a good quote from a religious leader that I'm fond of. He says, "You will tell me what you do when no one is telling you what to do. I will tell you what you will become."
That is amazing. Who said that?
The person's name was David O. McKay.
That is excellent.
And again, he was a particular religious leader, but I think his advice is far more general than just that particular religious orientation. And I used to often say that to students when I was teaching, who, if there was a 5-minute break, they would immediately get their phones out and start texting and say, "Tell me what you do when no one is telling you what to do. I'll tell you what you'll become." And it really made some of them stop and think, wait a minute, maybe I should be focused on something else.
Would you say that Bitcoin today, the Satoshi Whitepaper, depicted or was what you were visioning before? Would you say it made your vision a reality the way you would want it to?
Yes and no. I mean, obviously, we had this strong feeling that once you had a record that effectively the whole world would view the same record, that there were amazing things that you can do with that. And, it's that old notion of a shared experience, that we're all looking at the same thing. But I think Satoshi was very creative in what he did. And so if I were to say that it was what I expected, well, if that was the case, then I would have done it.
Right.
And so I want to give due credit to Satoshi. Now, in my talk, I tried to explain that we should celebrate what Satoshi has done, but we shouldn't necessarily worship it. Meaning that he innovated on a number of fronts, but it doesn't mean that he got everything right. And that we should appreciate what was done, but we should treat it more as an opening act rather than a sort of Bible about what to do.
Right.
And so we can celebrate and honor exciting contributions without saying, well, that's the end of it. This is the way to do it. There won't be any more innovation. In fact, there's so much more that can be done to build on this decentralized worldview.
What are 3 pieces of advice you would give to people wanting into cryptocurrencies, into Bitcoin right now, both on industry level, but also on a personal level? Let's start with the industry level. For Bitcoin, for crypto, what would you advise?
Well, I guess one thing I would say is it's great to be enthusiastic, but that doesn't mean that you throw caution to the wind.
Yes.
It's so important when you're working in technology and innovation that you make sure that what you have is not only exciting and interesting, but that it actually helps somebody. There's a lot of hype still in this space, even after so many years. And if you can stay people focused, then you're likely to not get too much caught up in that.
Okay.
So that's one thing I would say. The second thing that immediately comes to my mind is when you find someone that is not like you but really compliments you,
Right.
that's the person to marry.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. And that is the person we're seeing right here.
And that's
Yeah.
my wife. And I think I'd just be wandering the streets homeless if it weren't for having someone to bring a little more stability and perspective into my life.
There's an African proverb that says, if you want to get somewhere fast, go alone. But if you want to get far, go with
Go
others.
with someone. I
Right,
like
with
that.
someone, right?
Yeah.
Now, I do notice, Scott, that you have broken your voice because you're very tired. I know you've been talking. I don't want to tire you. I'm going to ask you two more questions. And if it's okay, maybe we can do another interview at some point. So if you have any questions, please ask them down below for the next interview. For Scott, he is a legend. So 2 questions. First of all, do you have any morning routines and daily habits?
Yes, I do.
Please share.
For me, it's as simple as getting up to exercise every morning.
Okay.
It really makes a difference. It doesn't mean that I can do it every day, but it gives me a clearer mind on most days when I can do it, and I would certainly encourage that. Beyond that, again, I think it's important to find time to take a break during the day. That often I will get so wound up, and I'll think that the way to take a break is to just check some social media feed or something.
Right.
And I've learned that better is to just take a pause for a few minutes and maybe don't do anything. The other thing, you talk about routine, I guess I would call it a habit of success, is to not assume that you really know how to do something until you share it and talk it through with others. You may have the greatest idea in the world, but you have to bounce it off of other people and see what they can bring to the situation. We really just we don't exist alone.
Yeah.
And have to find our success in working with others and
Gotcha.
drawing out their strengths as well.
As motivational and inspirational as well. One more question: what's the one question you wish people asked you, but seldom do?
The one question I wish people asked me,
That seldom do.
they seldom do.
And this could be something because you want to help them, they give them value, or they're not right. They may not be asking the right questions, or there's something you want to share.
I guess it would be something like this, and that is, people are attracted to people who, for one reason or another, have found a certain amount of notoriety or celebrity. And I wish people would understand that, that's kind of an interesting accident in life, but it doesn't really have a lot to do with feeling happy about things.
Right.
And it's much more just the mundane things, the things that we all can do, that we
Right.
all have in common, that really provide our value as humans. And I kind of like, and I apologize for saying this, I kind of like how the blockchain tells us that. Namely,
Right.
it's a shared record. And we all have to validate each other's work to make the blockchain work. And I think there's a lesson there for just how people should tone it down a little bit and learn to just appreciate other people for what they are as kind of fellow travelers.
I love it. Scott, thank you so
Sure.
much. Thank you. Thank you guys for watching. Comment down below if you have any questions. Until next time, keep succeeding. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for setting this up. Really appreciate it. Thank you.